All power. Thank you, comrades. Thank you very much. Manza, indlela esihambayo, indlela esihamba, indlela esihambayo, indlela esihamba. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom day. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom day. Lendlela esihambayo, lendlela esihambayo, lendlela esihambayo, lendlela esihambayo. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom day. Lendlela esihambayo, lendlela esihambayo, lendlela esihambayo, lendlela esihambayo. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom day. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-freedom day. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, directors of the program. ANC Youth League National Convener, Comrade Mzwandile Masena, National Coordinator of the ANC Youth League, Comrade Makasela Mzobe, members of the National Task Team, ANC, NEC members present here, former leaders of the ANC Youth League present here, veterans of our movement, leaders of SASCO, YCL, and COSAS present here, esteemed invited guests, esteemed delegates, comrades and friends, I bring greetings from the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, together with its hard-working and committed general membership. Comrades, a conference is an important for various reasons in the general political life of an organization. It is at this national conference that you will be assessing the performance of this organization and evaluating its impact in society. Normally, conferences come for any organization to take stock of itself, to check the health of the organization, to check whether it has made progress, but also to learn from successes and learn from mistakes. To check whether its finances have been properly handled, to then, on the basis of that thorough assessment, after a thorough discussion, work out the new plan, the new program to meet the challenges that will be facing an organization. So organizations come to conferences for very specific reasons. There could be other additional reasons, but in the main is to check the health of the organization and the progress that it is making. This conference is very important and special for all intents and purposes. As you know, it is convened and organized by the National Task Team, which was not elected at your last conference. The appointment of the task team came as a result of a difficult but necessary, unprecedented decision taken by the ANC NEC in early 2013 to disband the NEC of the ANC Youth League. This decision was not taken lightly. It was one of the most difficult decisions that the leadership of the ANC has taken in the recent past. It was taken as a consequence of continually ill-disciplined behavior in the league that brought the organization into disrepute on a number of occasions. I'm certain that both the organizational and political reports will sufficiently reflect on some of the factors that necessitated the appointment of an interim leadership structure at the time. In other words, the hope would have been that in this conference we take stock, we reflect on what has happened since that time. Whether the remedies that we thought we prescribed for ourselves did work or not. It is important that all of us, we should be together and be sensitive to this point of an organization. But the organization is bigger than any one of us as individuals. All of us joined the organization at our time, not together. The times are not the same, and we depart also at different times. And the organization remains. What we need as individuals is to say, as an individual or belonging to a collective, what contribution have I made to make this organization better than when I found it? Comrades, the founding manifesto of the 70-year-old ANC Youth League asserted that, and I quote, and we must listen, the formation of the African National Congress Youth League is an answer and assurance to the critics of the national movement that African youth will not allow the struggles and sacrifices of their fathers to have been in vain. Our fathers fought so that we, better equipped when our time came, should start and continue from where they stopped. Unquote. The formation of the ANC Youth League 70 years ago in 1944 was a landmark of great significance on the path to freedom and self-determination for the African majority. The birth of the ANC Youth League was an important milestone in the history of the ANC itself. The 1944 generation of the ANC youth takes the credit for having radicalized the ANC and transformed it into a fighting force for liberation and a mass organization. It is these young people who, in the later years, sustained the momentum of our revolution, even under conditions of illegality. It is important that we bear this in mind. That those who established the ANC Youth League had a long foresight and created a foundation that has stood the test of time. It is impossible to imagine how South Africa would have turned out had it not been for the militancy and youthful energy of young people of the ANC. Young people always have energy, and they are militant. The critical issue, how do you channel it? These, the 1944, channeled it very well. The energy, their thoughts, their ideas, enriched the mother body. in ideas as well as in programs. I always remember the program of action, which they crafted. And once it was crafted, it was correct, they came to present it to the mother body, so that the mother body looks at it and it adopted it in its own conference, and it became the program of action of the African National Congress and its allies. In other words, for the ANC to take the decision to defy the unjust laws, the ideas came from the Youth League. But you can see the synergy, the collaboration. There was no competition. And that's why the ANC was ready to take one of the very youth leaguers to lead the campaign, Nelson Mandela. Another equally important event in the life of the ANC Youth League was the 1991 National Conference, at which the League was officially relaunched following the unbanning of the national liberation movements. The significance of that conference was marked by the enormous tasks that the youth of 1991 had to execute in relation to our democratic transition. But what is important is that much as the youth of 1944 was an organization openly working, and the ANC was banned in 1960, it does not mean the youth of the ANC did not do anything until 1991. When the ANC took a decision to launch the armed struggle, it were the young people who had to move, not the old people. The young people who formed Mkhonto Wesizwe and demonstrated their bravery. When it was said the struggle had almost disappeared, in 1976, it were the young people who defied bullets and moved the 76 generation. I'm sure you will recall that in the 80s, our beloved President Oliver Tambo, when he made the call to the young lions that make South Africa ungovernable and apartheid unworkable, it was the youth that was in the forefront. So it doesn't mean the youth did not play a role. They always played a role at a given phase of our struggle. And therefore the ANC takes the youth very seriously. Partly as an organization, because it is from the Youth League that leaders are going to emerge to lead the ANC for many years to come. Some of us believe that we celebrated a centenary, number one, that we'll celebrate centenary number 2, 3, 4, all the time, because the ANC is going to be there all the time. The transition from apartheid to democracy, especially in the period between 1990 to 1994, needed a very strong youth with the energy necessary to mobilize and organize young people throughout the length and breadth of our country. Young people needed to be inspired by the peers about the role of youth in that very period, that during that delicate period, when our country was strife-torn and at the verge of a civil war, a very careful leadership had to be given. We are happy that our Youth League, under the firm guidance of the ANC leadership, was up to the task and successfully led young people. The role played by the Youth League in delivering an overwhelming majority to the ANC during the 1994 elections cannot be overemphasized. These facts indeed lend credence to the notion that the Youth League has an integral and inalienable role to play in the life of the ANC itself. The Youth League is not an end to itself. You are in the Youth League, you are moving to the mother body. Because the mother body is the leader of society. It must lead its government, it must lead the society, even those who call themselves opposition. The ANC must lead them as well. Comrade delegates, this conference is convened and organized by an interim leadership structure, just like both the ANC Youth League of 1944 and 1991 National Conference. It is a culmination of work that you have been busy with over the past 20 months or so. Although you might correctly believe that the journey to get to this conference was long and arduous, this conference is not in itself the destination, but part of a longer journey of the ANC Youth League. The ultimate destination will be a well-functioning ANC Youth League, which masters its twin tasks of advancing the interests of young people while at the same time rallying these young people behind the banner and vision of the ANC. In this regard, you, the delegates to this conference, are part of a special generation making history in our movement. And you must take that very serious. You are making history in our movement if you take where we come from and where we are. History is made by people. And it is always good to make a good history. Just like the generations of 1944 and 1991, your generation will be remembered as having opened a new chapter in the life of the ANC Youth League. You are delegates to a conference which takes place under a very interesting context. Context. I need to contest. Context. This is the first national conference of the League since we celebrated 20 years of freedom and democracy as we were consolidating it. It is also the first conference since the ANC declared that we have now entered a second phase of our long-drawn transition from apartheid colonialism to the national democratic society. During this phase, we will take bold and decisive steps, especially at the level of policy formulation, to ensure radical economic transformation. This consultative conference, therefore, has the responsibility to determine the place and role of a united and radical youth league in this second phase of our transition. It is all in your hands. Whether we are going to rise to the occasion or not. Comrades, in this conference, you must find time to deliberate on how to reposition the ANC Youth League in our society, to be the fighting force and a representative of South African youth in general. It's going to be how we conduct ourselves, how we introduce new ideas, how we show the way forward to young people in South Africa that will attract them to come to the ANC Youth League. You further need to work hard in answering questions relating to why some young people who are members of the ANC and are eligible to be Youth League members choose not to be. You need to answer that question. What is it that they don't feel comfortable with? Are we doing enough to attract them? That's part of our job as the ANC Youth League. You need on your own, without us, to answer that question. It's an important question. They are already in the ANC, eligible to be ANC Youth League, but they don't join it. Why? The Youth League must do away with conditions which allow a young person to enjoy being a member of the ANC but seeing no need to be a Youth League member. It must be automatic that if I'm under 35, I must belong to the ANC and the Youth League. It must be automatic. Emerging from this conference, we, the League, should begin work that will make every young person in the country to want to be a member of the ANC Youth League. It must be attractive. It must be calling to a young man who is not part of it. Everybody must feel, if I'm not a member of the ANC Youth League while I'm still young, there must be something with me. That is not right. Through the manner in which you conduct yourselves and carry out the mandate of the ANC Youth League, you will, as members of the League, attract scores of young people to the ranks of the ANC. It is in the manner in which we conduct ourselves that will attract people to come to us and see a future in the ANC Youth League. Some people, clever people, say that the circumstances, the material conditions, determine your being. It is not how much you are told. It is the material condition that determines your consciousness. When we talk of the role of young people in the advancement of the national democratic revolution, one is reminded of the words of the revolutionary intellectual, former General Secretary of of the former General Secretary of the Communist Party and Treasurer General of the ANC at the same time. And there was no contradiction between these two responsibilities. Comrade Moses Kotane. He said in 1968, and I quote, "At this hour of destiny, your country and your people need you. The future of South Africa is in your hands, and it will be what you make of it," unquote. These words came from a giant, one of the biggest giants of the African National Congress, as well as the South African Communist Party. Many people only know that he was a general secretary of the party. No, one of the responsibilities was the Treasurer General of the ANC at the same time. He was in the top 6. But not that only. If you see the nature and shape of the ANC, the nature and shape of the South African Communist Party, the nature and shape of the revolutionary trade unions, from SAGTU to COSATU, he put probably more than 70% of his effort to shape all these organizations. And his words, therefore, are important. If I were to make an analogy, I would say they're like the words in the Bible, written by some people, quoted every Sunday by the pastors. This was our giant who shaped our struggle with others, recognized by all the communist parties in the world as one of the most brilliant and clear thinker of our revolution. The Youth League remains an investment and reservoir for future leaders of the ANC. When we see Youth League leaders, we see future leaders of the ANC. That's what we see. A vibrant and active youth league brings us joy because it sends a reassurance message that the ANC has a future and that the future will be safe in your hands. You are not and you must not fail. You dare not fail us and all your people in this regard. The hope is that you are going to carry this movement further and further and further for generations to come as young people. You are our future. Bear in mind, we were also the future of those who were before us. Now we are about to disappear. We want to be certain that this thing, this beautiful thing that brought democracy remains. And we trust you with all our hearts and minds as young people of the African National Congress. Comrades, every political gathering in our movement should be a political school. It is therefore incumbent upon you to teach each other about how a youth league member must conduct himself or herself. Today, the phrase, quote unquote, by their fruits you shall know them, reigns more true for youth members. An ANC Youth League member must have distinguishing features from the rest. An ANC Youth League member must have distinguishing features from the rest. You can't be like the young people of other organizations. You must be different. Different. In every respect, political clarity and understanding, the manner in which you carry yourself. You mustn't say, I'm still young, the time will come, then I will be responsible. No. Be responsible now. A young person who is a member of the ANC must be able to advance ANC policies wherever they may be and whenever they may be found. This is consistent with the historic role of the ANC Youth League as a preparatory school of the ANC. In other words, if I make another analogy, if you're at school, ungasho ukuthi angizophasa manje ngophasa sengimdala. Phasa sonke isikhathi ukuze uthuthuke. Serious. Indeed, the task of young people is to learn, and learn some more all the time. Therefore, This consultative conference in 2014 must recommit League members to the service of the ANC. The League must do everything in its power and use its youthful energy to help the ANC achieve its own objectives. The Youth League's objectives, by definition, must reinforce and advance the objectives of the African National Congress. Let me emphasize that out of this conference must emerge a youth league that does not have objectives that are contrary to those of the ANC. There are mistakes that have happened in this glorious movement since 2005. Yes. Which must not repeat themselves. If I had time, I was going to tell you what are these mistakes and what happened, what impact have they made to the Youth League. I will come when you have time. Precisely because it is important. It is important. I've said it to your youth here, your leaders that were in the NTT. I've said it, and I would want to have an opportunity to say it because we need to correct it. Because the impact it made, it has led to other things emerging that I can't remember their names. Don't worry, I will have time to tell you. Don't worry. So ibeka njengomphako, like a provision, that one day I will tell you what happened. And we as the leadership made a mistake by not attending to it. We must eradicate the lack of discipline, the setting in of negative tendencies such as gatekeeping, the bad influence of money, lack of respect for one another and for higher and lower structures, and a general culture that displays a lack of understanding of the values of the ANC and what it stands for. At this conference, we also urge you to begin building an inclusive youth league. We can't have one youth league in two. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And that people actually spend energies and time maintaining two youth leagues in one. It's wrong. Can't be right. A league that welcomes the inputs and participation of all progressive youth, and indeed to all youth that wants to associate with the ANC. In other words, we should have an ANC Youth League which is a home of other youth leaguers. can't belong to the youth and be made to feel I'm not part of the youth. It's wrong. From here, must emerge youth that will be able to influence other young people and influence ideas and the discourse in society about the future of our country. We need a youth league that will teach young people to be patriotic and love their country. That is a very important task that the ANC Youth League must. You can't find young people who say, "Ngcono ngihambe ngiye kwelinye izwe." It's your duty to make young people patriotic about their country. It should be an ANC Youth League that is able to develop young people politically and which will defend the ANC. The Youth League of the ANC, one of its tasks is to defend the ANC. You know, every morning I listen to some programs of some radios that I forget to mention. People phone saying all negative things. And those people are very few. Just look at how many we are. You don't phone, you don't present the views of the ANC, but we are so many. We could actually cloud the callers, but we all just keeping quiet, listening to negativity when we could correct it. How do we defend the ANC? We are tweeting. Are we tweeting? Are we there in the social space? And then, why are we not defending the ANC? There are a few who does. I want more because we are more in the ANC Youth League in terms of organized force. It should be an ANC Youth League that will conscientize young people to be disciplined and which will promote revolutionary militancy and not anarchic militancy. Militancy is something of the youth, but it must be controlled properly. Agreed? You know, I tell a story when I was a young man. I was very angry, and I was thinking the leadership is afraid because I was young. Even participated in the group that we wanted to buy bush knives and Busha whites in Durban on a Saturday, 12 o'clock. Because it's the spirit of the youth. But because we were controlled, when we thought, we went to the leadership to say, look, don't be surprised. We want to do something. We want to act. And we were given tongue lashing. We never forget. In fact, one of us was umuntu oqine kakhulu akashonga ukuthi we think. He said sesibathengile ocelembe. Crucial that it must be militants. But the ANC militants must be well organized, well directed. It cannot be misdirected. That's the difference. That's what makes you distinguishable from others. We can't say you must not be militant. Otherwise, ngabe sidlala ngani. Fanele sinikhuze qho. Must always say, what are you doing now? Ngayiphathisa kwamakhehla nezalukazi. But it must all be organized, channeled, objective, positive, not negative. Indeed, you have a lot of work to do. History has bestowed upon you a huge responsibility of rebuilding this glorious youth league. You should ask yourselves what an ANC Youth League should do in the era of freedom. Anthony Lembede said, you should be prepared when you are a youth league for your task that is coming. Therefore, the ANC Youth League should have an outlook that is broader in this era of freedom. We are now building a country. Therefore, the issue of education and skills development should be the apex priority of the ANC Youth League. You should be empowered with the necessary skills to lead this country to prosperity and sustainable development. And therefore, in every form, you need to participate in the education of all of us as young people, so that you are empowered to participate in whatever form to make South Africa a prosperous country. That should be the task that must be uppermost to our youth. You should also be in tune with the socio-economic development needs of the country. The youth should have a contribution to make in developing policies that will make this country a better place for the youth. Most importantly, we need warriors for economic transformation. The example I made about the program of action, you should be itching. What is it that we can contribute to the motherboard so that we sharpen the policies and programs? Because you have the energy, the imagination. Sesiyakhohlwa thina sesithi masibiza ingane sibize iningi sithi sibiza le ubize le. No longer sharp here. Not so. We reiterate that our freedom is incomplete without economic freedom. When we talk about radical economic transformation, the ANC Youth League should know better than anyone else what we are talking about. The Youth League play a key role in unpacking the policies we developed at the National Conference on Economic Transformation. You must not allow other young people to take your policy and make their policies out there in the cold. Don't. Because we are quiet and zwagali. So they repeat your policies as if it is their policies. The League should play a key role in the process of deracializing the ownership of the economy and the means of production. This is necessary for our country, as broadening the ownership and participation of the economy will contribute faster to the achievement of inclusive economic growth and sustainable development in our country. Let me conclude by reminding you of the words of the founding president of the ANC Youth League, Anthony Lembede, when he took time to think carefully on what a Youth League member is called upon to do. Once again, listen carefully. He said, and I quote, "We are not called to peace, comfort, and enjoyment, but to hard work, struggle, to sweat. We need young men and women of high moral stamina and integrity, of courage and vision. In short, we need warriors. This means that we have to develop a new type of youth, of social discipline, trained to endure suffering and difficulties. It is only this type of youth that will achieve the national liberation of the people." Let me repeat it. This is a founder of the ANC Youth League. What he had in mind about a member of the Youth League. And he says, and I quote, "We are not called to peace, comfort, and enjoyment, but to work hard, struggle, and sweat. We need young men and women of high moral stamina and integrity, of courage and vision. In short, we need warriors. This means that we have to develop a new type of youth of social discipline, trained to endure suffering and difficulties. It is only this type of youth that will achieve the national liberation of the African people." Unquote. Even today, I believe the ANC Youth League needs this kind of young people as you rebuild a united and racial and a united and radical ANC Youth League for the advancement of the economic freedom in our lifetime. Comrades, our task is serious. Our task is real. There's no time to waste. There are many people who would want the ANC to disappear, and they are doing everything they can to undermine the ANC because they don't have an alternative. It is our task to stay on course. It is our task to strengthen our organization. And I must make this point. As I'm saying, the Youth League has been shaken, but also the mother body has been shaken. It has its own weaknesses. It needs to look at itself. And we were saying so in the NEC a few days ago. We admit that the organization is in trouble. Now, I can guarantee you, if anything or if everything goes wrong with the ANC, everything will go wrong in this country. There's no doubt about it. Thank you very much. The officials were making an intervention, so I had to make an intervention to them. Comrades, as I was saying, even today we need that type of ANC Youth League. And I think I've said enough for your consultative conference to reflect. It's very important to reflect. It's important that we must always learn. I am still learning the ANC up to this day. At times, the ANC behaves in the manner that I've got to learn that, by the way, this is a new ANC in government. It's not the ANC I know very much, which was fighting for freedom. This is the ANC in government. So I learn. I've got to appreciate. Kuthi sino minister manje. Sasingenabo ngesikhathi umzabalazo. Sinabo manje. What ministers? Deputy ministers, mayors, yabo? So I've got to learn all of that and learn something which you can't find called bureaucracy in government. You can look for it everywhere you can't find, but government people will tell you, we could not do this because bureaucracy did not agree. Comrades, I must, before I sit down, indicate that today we met with the president of the state of Palestine on a state visit, and is one of the first state visits to be made. It is in keeping with our policies. As we always say, and this was said by President Mandela, that we would not be free or our freedom will not be complete if the Palestinians are not yet free. We had a very productive meeting and discussions and clarified our minds about what is happening out there. And indeed, their position, very clear. The proposals that they are putting on the table and the trust they have in the ANC and South Africa, that we can play a role to help resolve that problem in the Middle East. They also made some points, and which I would want to make here, because we're very keen to hear their attitude, because at times it is important to know the attitude of the people you support. Because we're saying, people here are saying, let us boycott any commodity from Israel. Let us recall the ambassador. Let us do all of that. They said, no, sorry. That's not correct. We have said boycott the products that come from illegally occupied places in Gaza. That is what must be boycotted, not other things. They've said so, and I'm happy because they'll be meeting political parties. They will explain this, and they've got a very logical reasoning why. The international community has said a solution must produce two states living side by side in harmony, in peace. And they are busy working on this very methodically, even convincing people in Israel. And therefore, as I'm saying, there are many other issues that we talked about. Absolutely crucial that when we support people, we must know their own views about issues, so that we do what they would expect us to do. But they are brave. They are very clear where they are going. They are not confused. They are very clear. And it has been indeed a wonderful occasion today. We gave President Abbas the order of O.R. Tambo, the companion of O.R. Tambo, to recognize his bravery and good leadership. Comrades, our instructions to you are simple. And I'm tempted to intervene. If I'm intervening, huh? Kancane nje. Huh? Agreed. Now, perhaps it is important to make this point because, as I said, the ANC Youth League in its last conference produced a leadership that had to be disbanded. And we then decided we should have the NTT. Acronyms. The NTT. Angiyazi ukuthi isho ukuthini. Nami ngibiza ngithi NTT. To help deal with the Youth League and reconstruct structures, etc. I think it is important to share this because we had a meeting with the NTT to discuss this conference. We were very keen to know, because from our point of view, the signs as you were coming to conference, as you were holding your regional and provincial conferences, the signs were not good to us. Were not good. And we were very concerned. And that's why we said, let us hear. Because we did not want to have the same results of the last conference. It would not be good for the ANC Youth League, for the broader movement. It would not be good. In some provinces, some people would be in a conference, others would go out and have another conference. Many disputes and challenges. Now, as we met to discuss, and they were reporting to us, we're not convinced that we'll be very far from the results of the last conference. In fact, we were made to understand that as the delegates were coming in some areas who were eligible, proper, there were other delegates coming too. And there were few areas that were identified. We said to the NTT, can we allow you guys to go on and produce the same thing and be put in a painful situation to disband you again? Is that what we are looking for? There seemed to be an anger. Very, 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 very serious anger. And we discussed and said, That's not what we want to see. We want to see a wonderful result. What are we rushing if there are still problems? And secondly, in fact, there were 3 provinces that were not going to be represented fully and properly. Now, why do we leave them out? Aren't we starting another problem? Shouldn't we correct every other thing so that by the time we go to the conference, it is a conference of the ANC Youth League that we know? So we thought we should take, together with them, a decision for the sake of the movement. For the sake of the movement. We called the chairpersons and secretaries of the ANC mother body to come because we wanted to consult after having the discussion, because we knew the decision that we must take is a decision that must have the support of the movement. As we were discussing this with that leadership, one of the secretaries from one province said, in fact, when I left my province, the delegation coming here was at the office, and there were 2 delegations. One group, the delegates, the other one, not necessarily, self-appointed delegates. And they said to that comrade, who is the secretary of the province, "Oh, we are going to Gauteng." He says, "Yes." They say, "Along the way, buy a helmet, because chairs will be flying in that conference." But there was also an information that some people wanted to interdict the conference. But that also, there were others who were coming here, not for anything but to disrupt the conference. This was information in the hands of the leadership. And of course, one of the critical points is that we become too excited if we have candidates. Too excited. Because that excitement in the main is caused by oamlo. Akho umuntu la singabantu bakakhongolosi. You are now owning some people. Thina singabakabani, hayibo. U-ANC ke u-owner ba. So comrades, it was very logical, therefore, that a decision was taken to convert this conference, not to be elective, to be consultative. Partly to give ourselves time to reflect, to reflect and really look at how do we move forward from here. To operate as comrades, discuss politics, policy, because we would not be listening and discussing. Ngabe nisema khoneni lapha. Nenza izinto. So, the decision is correct. You might feel perhaps as an individual or a group, this is not correct. Then if that is the case, you are not putting the organization first. You are putting yourself first and your friends. This is the most correct decision. Again, sebenze as comrade in Xoxenji politique, without looking at Wamlo. Very important. As I said, we are here today. We will not be here tomorrow. All of us, the ANC will be here. Let us put the ANC first. I thought I should just touch that point because I can tell you, perhaps I should say this. When I came here, I was told there were rumors that some comrades are going to court. I said, "Awaphila comrade. Kwathiwa wasendaweni ethile ngeke ngisho." I said, you know, when the ANC is faced with challenges, at times our action tells whether we are ANC complete or quarter or half. Because I can't understand that we can take the ANC to court. You know, the party that takes the ANC to court every day because they've got no politics. I'm just forgetting its name, Ilape Parliament. At a drop of a head, Sisenkanto. I said to the comrades, no, that can't happen. If it happened, you will need to tell me who are these comrades? What for? What for? For whose interest? Really? For whose interest? Well, comrades, I just wanted to say that with an intervention that was made by some people. I was then saying as I conclude, our instructions to you are simple. You must redeem the integrity and stature of the ANC Youth League in society. You must. You must spare no effort in building strong presence from the ground up in all your structures. Let us build the ANC Youth League to be a powerful machine of this country. You should let discipline reign supreme. One of the mark that the ANC is known of is its discipline. For years, I was telling a story recently when we were in prison. One organization that I'm forgetting its name was provoking us. And we were youth. And we wanted to give them a mankomane, not hayi singadlali kanjalo. Sidlala abantu bethuka inkokheli zethu. And the leadership said, Start. Kancane. Don't. Sisifuthelana khupha ukushukela. Until the day came when they said pay kwabo political. And we finished them off. Timing, thinking carefully is important. Comrades, we wish you a successful national consultative conference. Amandla! Awethu! Oh, hindele ndlela ezihambayo. Oh, hindele ndlela ezihambayo. Oh, hindele ndlela ezihambayo. Oh, hindele ndlela esihamba. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-Freedom Day. Washu Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-Freedom Day. Ihinde lendlela esihambayo inde, lendlela esihambayo inde, lendlela esihambayo inde, lendlela esihambayo.
GovTech is South Africa's premier ICT event hosted by SETA.